Welcome back, creatures of the night. Halloween isn't just about blood-spattered slashers or creaky old haunted houses. It's also about that magical, eerie charm that only animation can deliver. For decades, animators have been sneaking shadows, skeletons, and a touch of the macabre into our candy-colored worlds. These movies don't just scare, they enchant, unsettle, and remind us of that childhood thrill when the porch light came on, the air turned cold, and we set out into the night with a pillowcase full of sugar. Tonight, I'm counting down the 10 best animated movies for Halloween, and of course, 3 honorable mentions that didn't quite make the list. They're creepy, they're kooky, and yes, sometimes even mysterious and spooky. For this video, I'm sticking with theatrical releases only, except for one glorious exception that may feature some meddling kids and their dog that fans would riot over if I left it off. So sharpen your fangs, light that jack-o'-lantern, and let's begin at number 10 with a giant were-rabbit. Number 10. Wallace and Gromit, The Curse of the Were-Rabbit from 2005. If Halloween isn't about pumpkins and ghosts, it's at least about strange transformations under a full moon. And who better to deliver that than Wallace and his long-suffering dog, Gromit? In The Curse of the Were-Rabbit, our favorite cheese-obsessed inventor and his slightly judgmental canine sidekick take on the role of humane pest control for their village's annual giant vegetable competition. Everything seems like a typical Wallace contraption disaster, until an enormous rabbit-shaped beast begins terrorizing the town, devouring pumpkins and prize marrows like a furry monster from a Hammer horror parody. What makes this film such a great Halloween pick is how perfectly it spoofs the tropes of old-school monster movies. There's the curse, the howling at the moon, the suspicious villagers with pitchfork energy, and of course the big monster reveal. It's all lovingly wrapped in Aardman Animation's signature stop-motion style, plasticine figures, meticulously crafted sets, and that slightly handmade charm that makes every eyebrow twitch hilarious. The humor is gentle, very British, and loaded with puns. Seriously, the jokes about antipesto never get old. But underneath the laughs is genuine atmosphere. Those moody nighttime chases, the looming full moon, and the shadowy outlines of the were-rabbit have the cozy spooky vibe of curling up with a Halloween cartoon marathon. The movie was also a critical and commercial hit. It won the Academy Award for Best Animated Feature, proving that claymation could hold its own against the big-budget CG giants of the mid-2000s. For fans of Wallace and Gromit's earlier shorts, it felt like the perfect expansion of their world. More gadgets, more chaos, and more proof that Gromit is basically carrying the team while Wallace blunders into supernatural trouble. Watching it in October is a delight because it hits both sides of the Halloween spectrum. It's safe and funny enough for kids, but adults catch all the clever nods to classic horror cinema and the sly innuendo in the script. It's the Wolfman reimagined with vegetables and bunnies, which is honestly the kind of camp Halloween deserves. And let's face it, no matter how many times Wallace cries out for "Cheese, Gromit," you can't help but love this eccentric duo battling a giant fluffy werebeast. Of course, sometimes the monsters we fall in love with are charming and hilarious, but other times, they're dead brides waiting under the moonlight for a groom who never meant to call their name. Number 9. Corpse Bride from 2005. Tim Burton's Corpse Bride is the ultimate gothic fairy tale. It tells the story of Victor, a nervous groom who accidentally proposes to Emily, a corpse with a tragic past, and suddenly finds himself caught between two worlds: the suffocating grayness of Victorian society and the colorful, jazz-filled underworld of the dead. What makes this movie such a Halloween staple is the way it reverses expectations. The land of the living is lifeless, washed out, and oppressive, while the land of the dead is vibrant, funny, and oddly welcoming. The design work is classic Burton. Spindly limbs, haunted eyes, crooked streets, and graveyards that look like they grew from twisted ink pens. Danny Elfman's music seals the deal with macabre show tunes that you can't seem to get out of your head. Emily, the titular corpse bride, is one of Burton's most tragic and beautiful creations. She's creepy, yes, she's a corpse, but she's also sympathetic, yearning for love and closure. Watching her skeletal fingers reach toward happiness is equal parts chilling and heartbreaking. This film was also a milestone for animation. It was the first stop-motion feature filmed entirely on digital still cameras instead of film. That leap pushed the art form into the future, and you can feel the meticulous care in every frame. For anyone who ever doodled skulls in the margins of their high school notebook, Corpse Bride is Halloween comfort food. Of course, not every resurrection ends with jazz numbers and bittersweet closure. Sometimes it ends with your pet dog stitched together like a furry Frankenstein. Number 8. Frankenweenie from 2012. If Corpse Bride is Burton's ode to gothic romance, Frankenweenie is his love letter to the monster movies of his childhood. Presented in glorious black and white stop motion, the story follows young Victor Frankenstein, who brings his beloved dog Sparky back to life after a tragic accident. But of course, once the neighborhood kids catch wind of his scientific success, they try their own experiments, and soon the whole town is overrun with mutated pets straight out of an old-school creature feature. This movie is Halloween in its purest nostalgic form. It's a scrapbook of horror homages: Godzilla, Dracula, Frankenstein, the Mummy, even Gamera. You can practically feel Burton pouring his own monster kid memories into every frame. Sparky himself, stitched but loyal, embodies both the sweetness of childhood love and the sadness of loss. It's also poetic revenge. Burton originally made Frankenweenie as a live-action short in 1984, but Disney thought it was too dark and fired him. Nearly 30 years later, Disney bankrolled the full feature. That's what I call rising from the grave. The mix of humor, horror, and heart makes it a perfect Halloween watch. One moment you're laughing at a zombie hamster, the next you're tearing up over Sparky's loyalty. By the end, you realize this isn't just a monster movie. It's a meditation on grief, memory, and why we love scary stories in the first place. Of course, Burton's stitched-up puppy is nothing compared to the skeletal nightmares Disney unleashed in the mid-'80s. A film so dark, they practically buried it alive. Number 7. The Black Cauldron from 1985. The Black Cauldron is Disney's black sheep. The movie they don't want you to remember, but one that Halloween fans can't forget. Based on Lloyd Alexander's Chronicles of Prydain, it follows a young pig keeper named Taran who teams up with a princess, a bard, and a fuzzy creature named Gurgi to stop the Horned King from using a magical cauldron to summon an army of undead warriors. When this movie came out, kids expecting another Cinderella or Robin Hood were instead treated to one of the scariest villains Disney ever created. The Horned King, voiced by John Hurt, is a skeletal tyrant shrouded in green mist, his voice like a whisper from the grave. He terrified children so badly in test screenings that Disney cut several minutes just to keep the fainting to a minimum. Even so, the movie bombed so spectacularly, it nearly shut down Disney animation entirely. But over time, it gained cult status. Fans came to appreciate its moody gothic visuals and its willingness to lean into horror elements. For Halloween, it's a gem: dark castles, cursed objects, and undead armies. It may not have singing mice or princesses, but it has the kind of bone-chilling atmosphere Disney never dared to revisit. In the House of Mouse, this is the skeleton in the closet. So, after all the gloom and doom, let's take a vacation. How about a weekend getaway at a hotel where monsters can relax? Just watch out for Adam Sandler. Number 6. Hotel Transylvania from 2012. Now, I know what you're thinking. Adam Sandler? As Dracula? Really? Let's stick with me. Hotel Transylvania is better than it has any right to be. The story is simple. Dracula runs a 5-star resort for monsters to keep them safe from humans. Everything is going great until a clueless human backpacker wanders in and falls for his daughter, Mavis. What sets this apart is the energy. Directed by Genndy Tartakovsky, the man behind Samurai Jack and Dexter's Laboratory, the movie crackles with cartoon physics. Dracula and his friends move like they're made of rubber bands, stretching, twisting, and snapping in ways computer animation rarely attempts. Every scene bursts with visual gags and monster references, from Frankenstein's bumbling charm to the Mummy's slapstick antics. It's not horror, it's Halloween comfort food. The jokes land, the visuals pop, And there's something oddly sweet about watching Dracula fuss over his daughter like an anxious dad at a PTA meeting. For families, it's a go-to October movie, and even for horror fans, it's a reminder that monsters don't always have to terrify. Sometimes they just need a vacation. But if stretchy cartoon monsters feel too safe, let's crawl through a tiny door in the wall to meet a mother who wants to sew buttons over your eyes. Number 5. Coraline from 2009. Some movies are scary because of monsters. Others are scary because of what they whisper to you when you're alone in the dark. Coraline belongs firmly in the second category. Adapted from Neil Gaiman's novel and directed by Henry Selick, the same mastermind who brought The Nightmare Before Christmas to life, this stop-motion gem tells the story of Coraline Jones, a curious and frustrated girl who feels invisible in her new home. Her parents are too busy working to pay her any attention, the neighbors are eccentric at best, and the creaky old house just doesn't feel like home. That is, until Coraline discovers a secret little door in the wall. Behind it lies a world that seems perfect. The food is tastier, the neighbors are entertaining, and her other mother dotes on her in a way her real mom never does. But there's one small horrifying catch. Everyone in this world has black buttons sewn where their eyes should be. At first, Coraline brushes it off as strange but harmless. Soon she realizes that this world isn't a dream, it's a trap. The other mother wants to keep her forever, and she's willing to stitch Coraline's eyes shut to do it. What makes Coraline so effective as a Halloween movie is how it takes something familiar, family life, a new home, a loving mother, and twists it into something uncanny and deeply unsettling. The stop-motion animation adds to the unease. Every moment feels deliberate, every stitch on Coraline's sweater, every twitch of the other mother's fingers, handmade and alive. By the time the other mother reveals her true form, a skeletal spider with a smile stretched too wide, both kids and adults are left gripping their seats. It's not just scary, it's beautiful. The colors, the textures, the sound design all combine into a dreamlike atmosphere that lingers long after the credits roll. Watching Coraline at Halloween feels like stepping into a childhood nightmare you can't quite shake. One that still gives you shivers when you walk past a doll with button eyes. Speaking of childhood nostalgia turned nightmare fuel, let's talk about a certain Great Dane who went to Louisiana and found out that for once the monsters weren't cranky farmers in masks. Number 4. Scooby-Doo on Zombie Island from 1998. If you were a kid in the late 90s, this movie hit like a bolt of lightning. For decades, Scooby-Doo had followed the same formula. Meddling kids unmask a bad guy in disguise, cue laugh track, roll credits. But Scooby-Doo on Zombie Island dared to ask, what if this time the monsters were real? And the answers, it turns out, was both terrifying and iconic. The gang heads to a spooky island in Louisiana where they expect to debunk yet another ghost story. Instead, they're confronted by shambling zombies, a plantation house dripping with southern gothic atmosphere, and cat-like creatures tied to a centuries-old curse. The difference is immediate. The zombies don't peel off masks or explain their schemes. They're undead and they're angry. For many kids, this was the first time Scooby-Doo felt genuinely scary. The animation leaned into shadows, flickering candles, and eerie swamplands. The story didn't hold back either. There are moments of real danger, moments where you can feel the gang realizing they might be in over their heads. Even the soundtrack is unforgettable, with its 90s alt-rock energy perfectly underscoring the action. The movie was initially slated to be a theatrical release, but Warner Brothers decided to cash in on the popularity of home releases, thinking that it would make more money that way. This film was extremely popular and revived Scooby-Doo for a whole new generation, proving that the franchise could evolve beyond its formula. And for Halloween, it's a perfect storm. Nostalgia, genuine scares, and that thrill of seeing childhood icons thrown into a world they can't laugh their way out of. Watching it now feels like opening a time capsule, one that reeks of swamp gas, cat curses, and VHS tapes rented from Blockbuster. From meddling kids to a misunderstood kid, our next entry is all about the boy who sees dead people. But don't worry, this one's funnier and just a little less depressing than The Sixth Sense. Number 3. ParaNorman from 2012. Leica Studios carved out a reputation for making animated films that push boundaries, and ParaNorman might be their crown jewel of Halloween cinema. It tells the story of Norman Babcock, a boy who can see and talk to ghosts. Unfortunately, everyone else in the small town thinks he's just a weirdo. That is, until an old curse awakens the dead and zombies begin shuffling through the streets. Suddenly, Norman's ability isn't just quirky. It's the only thing standing between the town and destruction. On the surface, ParaNorman has everything you'd want from a Halloween movie. Witches, ghosts, zombies, angry mobs, and a wonderful creaky atmosphere that feels like it belongs in October. The animation is breathtaking, with Leica using 3D printed faces to give their characters thousands of subtle expressions. That combination of stop-motion texture and technological innovation makes the movie feel both timeless and modern. But what makes ParaNorman special is its heart. Beneath the scares and jokes is a story about fear. The fear of what we don't understand, the fear of people who are different, the fear of being alone. Norman discovers that the witch behind the town's curse was once a little girl, wronged and misunderstood, and the real monsters were the people who judged and hurt her. That twist gives the story emotional weight most kids' films never dare to touch. And let's not forget the humor. ParaNorman balances its darkness with some genuinely hilarious moments, from snarky ghost commentary to the clueless mob that spends more time arguing than fighting. It even made history with one of the first openly gay characters in a mainstream kids movie, handled so casually it felt groundbreaking. Watching it at Halloween is a reminder that monsters aren't always the ones clawing at the door. Sometimes they're the ones inside the house pointing fingers. And that's a lesson as chilling as any jump scare. Norman had ghosts, witches, and zombies, but at least his house wasn't trying to eat him. Our next stop takes us right into every kid's worst October nightmare. The creepy place across the street that your mom told you to stay away from. The one with the dead lawn and the curtains that never move. You know the house. We all had one. And in this movie, that house isn't haunted. It's hungry. Number 2. Monster House from 2006. Every neighborhood has that one house, the one parents warn you about, the one kids dare each other to touch and then sprint away from like their sneakers are on fire. Monster House takes the universal childhood legend and literalizes it with gleeful malice. The place across the street isn't haunted, it's alive. The film follows a DJ, his best friend Chowder, and new-to-the-block overachiever Jenny on the most dangerously suburban quest imaginable, proving the cranky old Nevercracker's collapsing Victorian is actually a predator with shingles. Director Gil Keenan stages it like a Halloween heist movie, reconnaissance from bedroom windows, forbidden lawn incursions, and a spectacular third-act siege where the house stops pretending to be a house and reveals itself as a full-blown creature. Windows narrowing its eyes, the front door yawning like a splintered jaw, and that nasty red carpet unfurling as a tongue that means business. Beneath the jump scares is a surprisingly tender, tragic tale. The house isn't just mean for the fun of it, it's possessed by grief. Steve Buscemi's Mr. Nevercracker isn't a cartoon villain snarling, "Get off my lawn." He's a broken man trying, in the ugliest way possible, to keep kids safe from the thing he loves and fears the most. The backstory of Constance, the carnival giantess whose spirit fuses with timber and nails, reframes every creak and groan as a mourning cry. The emotional undercurrent is why the climax lands so hard. When the kids finally face the monster, they're not just fighting architecture, they're releasing a haunted memory. Visually, the movie hums with that cozy, menacing, ambient energy. October light slanting through bare trees, cul-de-sac streets that feel both endless and claustrophobic, and a camera that prowls like a nosy neighbor. The performance capture animation gives characters an elastic, slightly uncanny quality that actually suits the story. Everyone looks a little off because the whole world is a little off. The way Halloween night always feels half a step out of phase. Voice work is killer. Buscemi's brittle sorrow as Nevercracker, Maggie Gyllenhaal's delightfully unimpressed babysitter Z, Jason Lee's dirtbag boyfriend Bones, Kevin James and Nick Cannon as woefully outmatched cops, and Kathleen Turner's wordless, thunderous presence lurking within the house itself. What cements Monster House as essential Halloween viewing is how perfectly it captures kid logic turned into myth. The rules are simple and terrifying. Don't touch the lawn, don't look too long, don't go out after dark. And of course, our heroes break every one of them, because that's how you grow up. It's a gateway horror classic. Scary enough to raise goosebumps, humane enough to leave a bruise, and mischievous enough to make you side-eye every Victorian house you pass in late October. Take a breath, dust off the splinters, and keep your fingers where I can see them. Before we crown our Pumpkin King, a few honorable mentions are clawing at the door. Honorable mentions. Wendell and Wild from 2022 gave us the powerhouse pairing of Henry Selick and Jordan Peele. A stop-motion trip filled with demons, punk rock, and biting social commentary. It's messy, it's bold, and it's unlike anything else you'll see in October. The Addams Family from 2019 brought America's spookiest family back in animated form. While it couldn't eclipse the iconic live-action films, it nailed the macabre humor and gave younger viewers a gateway to the delightfully dark Addams world. Night of the Zoopocalypse from 2024 is the new kid on the block, where zoo animals face a full-blown zombie outbreak. It's chaotic, it's ridiculous, and it proves that Halloween animation is still evolving in weird and wonderful ways. And now we've reached the final stretch. We've survived cursed cauldrons, button-eyed mothers, and houses that eat children. But there can only be one king of Halloween Town, and he's waiting with a song on his skeletal lips. Number 1, The Nightmare Before Christmas from 1993. There are Halloween movies, and then there's The Nightmare Before Christmas. The crown jewel of spooky stop motion, this film tells the story of Jack Skellington, the Pumpkin King of Halloween Town, who grows bored of his yearly routine and decides to hijack Christmas. Naturally, it doesn't go as planned. Turns out Santa Claus doesn't appreciate being kidnapped by skeletons, and kids aren't thrilled about toys that try to eat them. What makes this movie a perennial classic is how perfectly it balances darkness and charm. The visuals are gothic and strange, yet irresistibly beautiful. The characters, Jack, Sally, Oogie Boogie, are instantly iconic. And Danny Elfman's songs are so memorable that This Is Halloween has basically become the official soundtrack of October. Behind the scenes, it was a labor of love. Directed by Henry Selick and produced by Tim Burton, the movie took 3 years to make, with animators painstakingly moving puppets frame by frame. Hundreds of sets, thousands of props, and over 200 puppets were used to create a world that feels both otherworldly and tangible. Disney didn't even want to release it under their main label, fearing it was too scary for kids, so it came out under Touchstone Pictures. Ironically, it's now one of Disney's most merchandised films. Watching The Nightmare Before Christmas at Halloween is like visiting an old friend. It's funny, it's creepy, it's oddly romantic, and it's the rare movie that works just as well in December as it does in October. It doesn't just belong on the list, it owns the list. This is the Pumpkin King, the skeleton monarch of Halloween, and he's not giving up his crown anytime soon. And there you have it, the 10 best animated movies to watch when the pumpkins are glowing, the leaves are crunching, and the shadows feel a little too long. From Wallace and Gromit's Were-Rabbit to Jack Skellington's takeover of Christmas, these films prove that animation can haunt, comfort, and thrill us in ways live action sometimes can't. So what do you think? Did your favorite make the cut? Or is there a hidden Halloween gem I left buried in the crypt? Drop your pics in the comments. And don't forget to like, subscribe, ring that notification bell, and make sure to keep your jack-o'-lantern lit.